There are some people who rightly should be called reverent, and they are not religious people. I mean, these are people who are so much respected that you are tempted to call him or her reverent. Among those people is one Leonard Mambo Mbotela. I find it hard to even be deemed to be opposing him. He's somebody who is very respected in Kenya, and his greatest thing he has done to Kenya was ask a question, Je, hu ni ungwana? And I would also wonder if hu ni ungwana, when he repeatedly misinforms Kenyans about what happened on 1st August 1982, which was a Sunday. It stresses me to imagine, and I always ask myself why. But I felt that for the sake of the truth, let me say the truth, even though I may seem to be opposing somebody whom I really respect. He started his program, I think in 1969. And in 1969, I was in Standard 2. And it had even reached a stage where people, when they talk, they say, Leonard Mambo alisema, je, hu ni ungwana? He has been saying that on August 1st, the airmen came, took over the station. When they took over the station, they went to his place in Ngara and kidnapped him under guns and took him to the radio station. I have no capacity to comment on that because I do not know whether it is true or not, and I have no capacity to counter-check it. So we can say that he was right there. Then he goes on to say things happened, and when Mahamud came with the military and the GSU, they found him hiding under a table. And he said, he raised up his hands and shouted, Mimi ni Leonard Mambo Mbotela. And you see the airmen who were with him there had all been shot. So he shouted, and he says that General Mohammed, after seeing it was him, greeted him and said, look, I was about to shoot somebody whom I've always wanted to meet. And they met under by then he was a Major General. Major General Mahmoud then told him to announce. And even right now, if you ask Leonard Mambo Mbotela to say, he say after he had been taken from under the table, then he was given a piece of paper and he announced that serikali sasa iko imerudi kwa mikono ya mtukufu Rais Daniel Arap Moi. That is the part that I disagree with. First of all, before I indulge into how I disagree with, I want it to be noted once again that Mahamud found himself in Nairobi because he was retiring. He was the deputy army commander, and his constant fights with the army commander, Lieutenant General Sawe, had reached to an extent that Moi had decided that Mahamud was to retire. So Mahmoud was in Nairobi doing his clearance. He was in Nairobi doing his clearance. But then, because of that, he was rehired. I mean, he continued. They forgot about his retirement. He worked. He started afresh the 82 Air Force. Then from there, after serving in the 82 Air Force for long, he went back and became the chief of the general staff. What a lucky man, being at the right place at the right time, such that he added more than 15 years of what he would have retired. Now, why? When all these things were happening, the military, most of them, were in the north doing military practices. Those people who returned Moi to power were the 7th Battalion, also known as Maroon Commandos, together with the GSU, are the ones who returned Moi to power. But you see, the pecking order in every military work, you can even remember the Westgate, when the GSU when the rec company of the GSU were performing their duty, they had to be told to step down in favor of the military commandos. So all the donkey work was done by GSU, and all the fame went to 7K and the army. Now, I want to tell you what happened to prove that, and I believe recently we had a case where somebody came up with a tape that Ezekiel Ochuka had announced that he had taken over the government. The tape was there in the social media. So I believe that KBC still has the tapes of what happened on that day. I believe somewhere there must be tapes where Leonard Mambo was announcing. And I'm very sure if those tapes come out, they'll prove me right. I can remember that very well. Now, what happened on that day? It was at 7 a.m. You know, we had Jackson Alalia. Jackson Alalia's mother was an elder sister to my late stepmother. So Jackson Alalia was staying at his mother's sister's house. And he used to wake up earlier than me by far. So he woke up at around 7, and when he was somewhere in the sitting room, minding his own job, my stepmother went and told him, kuja uangalie hii ni mambo gani, and she pulled him to their bedroom, my father's bedroom and my stepmother's bedroom. Alalia, at that time, the way his aunt and my stepmother was so worried, the first thing that came to his mind was maybe my father had collapsed. And so she was calling him to go and see how my father had collapsed or something in the bedroom. So he entered that bedroom knowing that he was going there for an emergency. From the way his aunt sounded and the way things were happening, he only concluded that maybe my father had a heart attack or a certain seizure of whatever type. Then when he went to the bedroom, he found my father holding his head with both hands. And the radio was on. It was a national Panasonic radio. And for those of you who may be of my age, you remember that national Panasonic which used to be on newspapers, that when you switch it on, neighbors go to the window to listen to your radio. Those are the days when TVs were. And again in Garissa, even if you had a TV, there was no reception there. So what happened? When he went there, he saw my father holding the head with both hands while seated on the bed and dejected. But before he could ask what was wrong, he heard Leonard Mambo clearly saying that the government has been overthrown and it is under the military, and police officers should release all prisoners, and police officers should be like raia. They should be just like ordinary civilians. Then Jackson Alalia went to the boys' bedroom, called me. By then the radio was now being transferred from bedroom to sitting room, and we were there listening. Shortly after that, around 8 a.m., Leonard Mambo was still talking about the military taking over. And we looked, our house was separated by a fence with that of General Mahamud. So we went, when we heard the government had been overthrown, of course, our next door neighbor was a military person, and we had to stand by his family. So we went there to the fence and looked over, and Aden Duale's mother-in-law came over to the fence. She was very worried. She was shaking. She was so concerned. And when we listened to her, that time we were in Mandera. No, we were in Garissa. We were in Garissa. And here we were with General Mahamud's wife. And on the radio, we were carrying that radio. Radio was saying that the military had overthrown. The first thing she told us that she was worried about her husband, who will be killed. We said, but Mama, we are hearing that it is the military who has taken over. That is the first time I had, or we had, as the Lando family, we heard that there was difference between General Mahamud and General Sawe. So she was telling us, we were trying to tell her, you see, the army has taken over, and you see, those are the days when military used to, every day you wake up, you hear Uganda has been overthrown, you hear Ghana has been overthrown, Nigeria has been overthrown, Libya has been, every day you hear a certain African country has been overthrown by the military. So that time, we knew the military had taken, so we were trying to be sycophantic, if I can say that, so that when Mahamud is made a minister or anything big, he can remember. But his wife, Aden Duale's mother-in-law, was a very worried person. According to her, at that time, she was sure that because the husband had always been saying that Sawe is the type who could overthrow Moi. And she was saying that if Sawe has overthrown Moi, then her husband would be killed, because he always knew that Sawe could overthrow Moi, but there was no way he could report a alleged general to Moi. So she was so worried and whatever, and we stayed there for a long time. Between 30 to 1 hour. We could not, in such a situation, you don't even know when you don't look at the watch and that it started this. And she was so worried. She was so sure that Sawe, and if anybody who knows Duale's family can take this step to them and ask, and I'm sure Mama Halima would agree with it. I can confidently talk that. And then we stayed for quite some time. I can't tell you how long it is, because that is the last time you'll be looking at your watch. And I had a very good watch, which was Seiko 5. And then the radio started broadcasting. The first thing I dare say that Leonard Mambo said, and I would want somebody to go and ask the general's family, or even go to the KBC and see the tapes. the first message Leonard Mambo said was, serikali ya Nyayo imerudi, watu waendelee na kazi ya kawaida, hakuna wasiwasi. Serikali ya Nyayo imerudi na imerudishwa na naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi, Major General. He never mentioned the name of whoever had headed that. And I remember very well, seated with the current Mrs. Duale. She was a student at Kianda High School. She's more like a kid sister to me because we grew up next door neighbors. Mokwasi Duale. Somebody was accusing me that I'm related to everybody. So we sat down and assured her, and I remember very well, we were arguing with her. We were, especially me, because my stepmother, my father had withdrawn. There was the Provincial Security Committee consisting of Mr. Okello, who was of the Special Branch, my father. There was Benson Karia, who was the Provincial Commissioner, Northeastern. This Provincial Security Committee had met to evaluate the things. So we were remaining there with my stepmother, who was illiterate, and it is me who was assuring Duale's stepmother, Duale's mother-in-law, that, we can I use the word argued? Because I said that naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi, that is army, and Major General, is your husband. She said no. Apparently my husband was among the people who wanted to overthrow the government, and you can hear they saying naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi. Mkuu wa majeshi ni nani? Ni Mulinge. So naibu wa Mulinge ni nani? Ni Sawe. And we are saying no, mkuu wa majeshi ya army, naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi ya army. Usumesikia Leonard Mambo akisema Major General. That is we stayed, and it was so tense, and it was so confusing. And I must add, I had just completed my advanced level, so you must add that I was being careful, selective with my words, because you never know the outcome of the whatever thing. Leonard Mambo spent a lot of time, and I can dare say that he said more than 20 times, and I'll repeat, I just wish the tape came out. He was saying, watu warudi makazi zao za kawaida, serikali ya Nyayo imerudi, chini ya naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi, Major General. And we'd stop there. And that is why we were arguing or debating, me and Mama Halima, the mother-in-law to Duale. She was saying that the person who is naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi yote, I can place the word yote in a bracket, is she was translating that mkuu wa majeshi to be the deputy chief of the general staff, and I was interpreting naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi to be the deputy army commander. You see, Sawe was the army commander and the deputy chief of the general staff. So she was interpreting that whatever Leonard Mambo was saying he was referring to deputy chief of the general staff, and I was saying that he was referring to deputy army commander. We stayed that for a long time, any time between 30 to over an hour. That is when now Leonard Mambo came and said, naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi, Major General Muhammad Mahamud. But before I continue, I had a privilege of hearing firsthand a very big secret. Msidhani nilianza kupata masiri wakati niliingia special branch. She told us, in that state, when we were so confused, as to who was being referred to. I mean, there are two steps here. When it was said that the military had taken over, and also the time when it was said that the deputy naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi, she told us that President Siad Barre of Somalia had approached General Mahmoud Mohammed with an intention of seceding northeastern to form the Greater Somaliland. And Major General Mohammed Mahmoud had declined to do that, and he was very loyal to Moi, or to Kenya, both Moi and Kenya. I heard that firsthand, and it is because of that confusion of that time that Leonard Mambo has conveniently decided to forget. So we spent some time, I can say between 30 to 90 minutes, anything behind there. You know, when you are tense, even 5 minutes is like 5 hours. Then when he announced that the naibu wa, let me say it in Swahili, naibu wa mkuu wa majeshi Major General Mahmoud Mohammed amerudisha serikali ya KANU na Nyayo uongozini, Garissa was burning. Garissa was burning. If I had power to go back, that is one of the days I would want to go back, even though I had a plaster in one of my legs, my right leg, but I was using crutches, that I can say that. But that was one of the happiest days to me and all around us. Suddenly, the military which was there came and surrounded his house, the Kenya Army. And we had a few pilots from the Air Force. They came and surrounded that house, and it was out of bound. But the Mahmoud family pinpointed us, and there was also a Chief Inspector, Barnabas Souza, who was in charge of aircraft fuel. And about 5 families where we had been pinpointed and were told that we should, we were entering and coming in and out like, and and yes, military people were saluting us, even me, because we were being taken as the people who are very close to Mahmoud family. And then the military brought a whole side of one side of a bull and said they are giving it to the family. Madam said, Adendwale's mother-in-law said, no, I am not in, I don't have appetite. I don't feel like eating anything. I just want to talk to Mzee. Even though I know that he's whatever, I just feel like talking to Mzee. We stayed there. And I could go to town, Garissa town, and you'd hear brigadier. He had stayed as a brigadier for a long time that people did not know that he was now a major general, and they were so proud of him being a brigadier. Then something happened that it reached a certain time when you have heard of that plane, which took off and nobody knew where the plane had gone. But later we came to learn that the plane had gone. They went and dropped bombs in Mount Kenya. So since it was reported that a plane had gone and it was not known where it was going, we were evacuated from our houses. I remember how imagine having a plaster on your leg and you're walking with the crutches, and then the military are carrying you and you're wailing because of the pain, and they're telling you you'd rather have the pain and leave other than stay here, because it was suspected that his house was being targeted to be bombed. So these are things that I remember very well, and I do respect him for somebody who started a very good program when I was in Standard 2, 1969. He had all the honors and he had done that. But the reason why he chose to conveniently mislead people about what happened, I don't know. Maybe one time he'll come out clean. But for those who have tapes, those who have that tape at the KBC, where he was for about between 30 to 90 minutes, he was saying that Major General, without giving out the name. How can Mahmoud tell you that he's Mahmoud, and then for about an hour you just say, and you cause that confusion? But it also is good because it led me to understand that General Mahmoud was loyal to Kenya, even though he was asked by the Somali government to look for ways where he could cut off the northeastern and join it to Somali Republic. Thank you.